Welcome to Wikipedia 101 for educators. At the end of this course, you should be able to correct common misconceptions about Wikipedia, assess the value of Wikipedia for teaching, and describe how Wikipedia can be used in your course. I'm not allowed to use Wikipedia. This is likely something you've said or been told, and the reality is, while there are reasons not to allow the use of Wikipedia for research, avoiding Wikipedia outright or banning it can have a detrimental effect on both student learning and on the relationship between educator and learner. The mistrust that academics and people in academic places have for Wikipedia leaves out all the benefits of Wikipedia, both as a tool for learners and one for teachers. This Wikipedia 101 session is the tip of the iceberg and hopefully can start you on your journey to investigating the value of Wikipedia as a teaching tool. Far from encouraging the dumbing down of students, as if such a thing could ever occur, Wikipedia has the potential to teach learners content as well as information literacy, or the processes of information seeking, knowledge creation, and the ethical use of sources. The myths versus realities listed on this slide aren't the only ones. They're just prevalent ones. Wikipedia's democratic, open investigation and publishing process means that anyone can edit it. However, far from being a disadvantage, it's a strength. Rather than limiting research, scholarship, and communication to a select few, Wikipedia allows for the world to decide what entries to create and how to present it. The reality is that while anyone can edit Wikipedia, only a few do. Many of the Wikipedians are subject matter experts and provide checks, sources, and revisions to what's out there on the pages. This is why Wikipedia entries have been found to be accurate time and again. Sources that are used as references throughout are the same sources that you seek in your classroom. Library sources, those from academic journals and books. Wikipedia is a donor-driven, nonprofit encyclopedia. The parent organization, Wikimedia, publishes its funding reports and is listed among Charity Navigator's highest rated and most transparent nonprofits. It is, in fact, the opposite of an ad-driven economy. The use of Wikipedia is indicative of interest in learning, in engagement with streams of information, and the desire to have good information. With a little guidance, learners can know what they're looking at when they encounter an entry, and they can learn how to use it intelligently, in a way that leads to more investigation and transfer. Though Wikipedia itself is free, its authors rely on traditional library sources and fee or subscription-based publications. The myths versus realities listed on this slide aren't the only ones. They're just prevalent ones. Wikipedia's democratic, open investigation and publishing process means that anyone can edit it. However, far from being a disadvantage, it's a strength. Rather than limiting research, scholarship, and communication to a select few, Wikipedia allows for the world to decide what entries to create and how to present it. The reality is that while anyone can edit Wikipedia, only a few do. Many of the Wikipedians are subject matter experts and provide checks, sources, and revisions to what's out there on the pages. This is why Wikipedia entries have been found to be accurate time and again. Sources that are used as references throughout are the same sources that you seek in your classroom. Library sources, those from academic journals and books that often come with a hefty price tag. Wikipedia is a donor-driven, nonprofit encyclopedia. The parent organization, Wikimedia, publishes its funding reports and is listed among Charity Navigator's highest rated and most transparent nonprofits. It is, in fact, the opposite of an ad-driven economy. Never has information and knowledge been so accessible, so freely, so readily, and so currently as it is on Wikipedia right now. The use of Wikipedia is indicative of learning. The myths versus realities listed on this slide aren't the only ones. They're just prevalent ones. Wikipedia's democratic, open investigation and publishing process means that anyone can edit it. However, far from being a disadvantage, it's a strength. Rather than limiting research, scholarship, and communication to a select few, Wikipedia allows for the world to decide what entries to create and how to present it. The reality is that while anyone can edit Wikipedia, only a few do. Many of the Wikipedians are subject matter experts and provide checks, sources, and revisions to what's out there on the pages. This is why Wikipedia entries have been found to be accurate time and again. Sources that are used as references throughout are the same sources that you seek in your classroom. Library sources, those from academic journals and books that often come with a hefty price tag. Check the Wikipedia sources. Many of them come from the same places you want your students to find them. Wikipedia is a donor-driven, non-profit encyclopedia. The parent organization, Wikimedia, publishes its funding reports and is listed among Charity Navigator's highest rated and most transparent nonprofits. It is, in fact, the opposite of an ad-driven economy. Never has information and knowledge been so accessible, so freely, so readily, and so currently as it is on Wikipedia right now. The use of Wikipedia is indicative of an interest in learning, in engagement with streams of information, and the desire to have good information. With a little guidance, learners can know what they're looking at when they encounter an entry, and they can learn how to use it intelligently, in a way that leads to more investigation and transfer. Wikipedia relies on libraries and subscription-based sourcing. Although Wikipedia is free and open, the sources where the information comes from are not. Wikimedia is the larger organization under which Wikipedia is found. Wikimedia's values can be found online on the Wikimedia Foundation's website at wikimediafoundation.org. The values of Wikipedia start and end with its role as a participatory repository of knowledge and discourse. Wikipedia is an encyclopedia, and like other encyclopedias, it strives for excellence in accuracy and research. It's written from a neutral point of view, insofar as neutrality is possible, and with so many varied and diverse voices engaging in the authorship and revision process, Wikipedia's aims are more likely than those of other reference materials to achieve a common authorial neutral POV. Being accessible and free are key to Wikipedia. Being donor-supported means that private industry and capital don't play into the content or to competing interests. Crucially, Wikipedia is an information resource that can be used for learning and knowledge creation. In the next few minutes, you'll learn about Wikipedia's relationship with information literacy concepts and processes. Information literacy generally is the sum competencies and dispositions of a person to engage with information, build knowledge, and communicate learning or knowledge based on those interactions with information. We use information literacy, or IL, all the time in practically every way when we are in learning or communication spaces. Before digital spaces, we thought of information literacy as the realm of books on library shelves and newspaper articles. Computer technology and internet have changed all that, always immersing us in the information ecosystem and knowledge economy that we're connected to on a device or through a Wi-Fi access point. Our students are there with us, and for educators, information literacy has become a crucial set of abilities that incorporate and express critical thinking and higher order thinking skills while superseding any location geographical or otherwise. Professors and teachers regularly tell students to avoid Wikipedia for all those reasons we covered earlier. But Wikipedia is a perfect exemplar of what we want students to do when they learn and to prove to us that they've learned content. A Wikipedia page, any Wikipedia entry, conforms to a standard of stated claims and robust referencing that can serve as models for expectations we have of students. Information literacy has been defined as a series of interrelated and overlapping threshold concepts. These concepts act as umbrellas for behaviors and practices employed by individuals. All of us, as we engage with information, exhibit the underpinnings of these information literacy concepts. Librarians call this the framework for information literacy, and it helps us understand how we and other learners encounter information. The major concepts are listed on this slide. While they can be explored in much more depth, here I discuss how Wikipedia and the information literacy framework relate. Information creation is a process. Information doesn't just appear. It is gathered and it is shared. Wikipedia allows visitors to experience a living document where information changes. Wikipedia solicits and encourages users to engage with that process and contribute to its creation. Scholarship as Conversation observes that discourse in subject areas is dynamic and evolving. Scholars and experts collaborate and share, debate and challenge. Wikipedia is free, but information is valuable. It is free because Wikipedia acknowledges that it requires money to access. Links for sources go to subscription-based library journals and resources which are fee-based. Hosting, server space, organization, and back-end web design and support come at a cost, and Wikipedia solicits donations to keep the information exchange it provides open. Authority is constructed or contextual, challenges the concepts many have that expertise exists in a vacuum. Democratizing curation and revision challenges those concepts of authority as existing only in academic spaces, closed off to people who cannot access them or choose not to. Providing links to different types of sources in a single entry exposes visitors to how authority might look different for one topic or one subject from another. It helps us evaluate our biases as well as the sources of information themselves. Research as inquiry observes that all research, whether it happens in a lab or from the pages of a book, is guided by questions and curiosity. Wikipedia knows that and uses hyperlinks and references within and to external sources to prompt users to explore rather than to stop. There is a strategy to every search, or there should be. To learn isn't to look at all things all the time. It's about making decisions about what you find and where that will lead you to next. It's an iterative process of exploration, and the more information literate you are, the more you can develop as a searcher and make economical decisions. Wikipedia's curation of references is one way it sets users on a path and how it models that economy and strategy. Using Wikipedia in your classroom is simple and straightforward. 2 beginner-level examples follow. Both of these activities can be used in practically any subject area with a wide array of learner types and in different learning situations. Consider how you can use these activities in your own class settings. How can you change them to fit your learners' needs? How can your instruction benefit from engaging your students with Wikipedia entries? This Research Starter activity is perhaps the most familiar to you and your learners because it's similar to how you use Wikipedia in your daily lives for basic information needs. Searching for a Wikipedia entry relevant to your course subject area can be as simple as starting at Wikipedia and searching for a key concept in your class or a significant person or event. By surveying the entry with your students, or asking your students to survey the entry for you, what is a Wikipedia entry? How is it organized? What do the linked text sections mean? Scroll to the bibliography and further readings listed at the bottom of the entry. Discuss what those are and why it's important that Wikipedia authors have included them there. Use the entry to identify keywords that learners can use to learn more about the topic. Show them how to identify terms that can be searched in other sources like library databases or dictionaries. Want to compare how Wikipedia holds up to a library source? Then do it. Use the same term as your search term for library databases. Find your institution's library page and start your searching. Talk about your process as you're undergoing it. Interrogate the process. Is it easy or difficult to find information that's similar to Wikipedia's type of information? That is, can you locate one or more traditional reference materials with the same type of information that your Wikipedia entry has? See if you can locate your entry's sources in library databases. Do you have access to them? How relevant are those sources to your students' learning needs? Are they too nuanced? Are they too expert? Are they appropriate for your learners? Creating content feels like a more challenging activity than a beginner level one. And there are variations of this and the research starter activity that are incrementally more advanced. But this version of creating content is precisely the kind of next step activity that you're already likely expecting students to do in your classes. The overall concept is to use Wikipedia's bibliography and reference sources at the bottom of entries as a model for what you expect from your students who are learning about your subject area. Pull up a Wikipedia entry for a relevant concept or significant person or event in your subject area. Explore the bibliography at the end of the entry and click through the sources. Lead your students through an interrogation of these sources. What are they? Where do they come from? Are they accessible? Suggest to your students that they can find sources to complement or flesh out the ones already in the Wikipedia entry. Using the library databases, your students can find sources to complement Wikipedia's entry. So have them do it with you. Lead them through a series of library searches or even a web search where using evaluation tools like CRAP and ActUp, they can assess the currency, relevance, and accuracy of sources. Now that we've covered the very, very basic Wikipedia 101, let's see what you've learned or what you've gathered from what's been presented here. Wikipedia provides ample resources for instructors of any level, in any discipline, and with any level of familiarity with Wikipedia or tech savvy. To access these free open resources, visit wikiedu.org/for instructors.